Burning Man, Scott Deedles, the Bitcoin man in the Bitcoin show. You were down at the
Bitcoin
swamp,
burner.
I guess. Eh? You were in the swamp there. I saw some of the stuff on the internet there. Looked pretty muddy and looked like Alberta mud too. It kind of sticks and just kind of grows as you walk, right?
It was, yeah, the only difference, I think it was about 30 degrees warmer than you can hope for on a hot Alberta day. But
Yeah,
yeah, it
like
was
that mud is
good
that
time.
clay though, right? It just kind of expands as you walk around,
Oh,
eh?
sticks to everything. Yeah, it's crazy.
So what'd you think of it though?
For a first time, I feel like Burning Man's one of those things that a lot of people have strong opinions about, whether they be in or not. I was excited to have a chance to form my own. I thought it was a one of a kind experience. Super happy I went. I'm probably going to go again. It's a good thing it's only a week long. By the end of it, you're hot, you're dirty, you're tired, and
Oh, muddy.
like getting in and out, it's crazy. Like we got lucky because we arrived before the storm really started on the Saturday. But I met people from Kelowna who were trying to get in Sunday and were in their car for 18 hours waiting to
Wow.
be admitted. They're just because of that clay, you actually can't drive on it. Like it just
Again, it's
bung up
like
the
Alberta.
road.
I've been in northern Alberta on some of the back roads, and I can remember being up in northern Alberta, driving on the back roads, and you can't even move around. We went to the car wash, sprayed the rims out because the car was just shaking because the clay packs up inside the rims. And then I think a week later we got home to like Greenwood there, and the dust, it turns into dust, and it's still falling out of the suspension like a week later,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah, forever.
glue. It's absolutely like glue. But good time, and it's weird that you found somebody else from Kelowna there as well. So cool, 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 cool.
Yeah, a lot of BC people. There was 20 in our group from Kelowna, so we were well represented.
Yeah, you saw the big sign there, Elon, burn Elon or something like that, or what was there was some kind of like
Uh,
Elon Musk.
it was a little bit more explicit than Burn Elon.
Wild place. Well, we're talking about Bitcoin. Bitcoin kind of taking a pause here right now as it's looking for direction. There's some articles out there that says Bitcoin, the bears have control of Bitcoin and all this other stuff. And I thought that an apt title would be "Is Bitcoin Dead?" Because I think CNBC did that thing. They buried it. They actually had a funeral for it at 9,000. So
Yeah, there have been like something like 400 proclamations of Bitcoin's death, and I actually saw an article. I don't know if we were talking about this on one of our recent episodes about charting the regularity of Bitcoin death proclamations, and we're actually at an all-time low. So I don't know if the 100,000 price mark is a psychological number where people have decided it's likely to stick around. It is just a funny thing about Bitcoin where the price is over 100,000 US, and in other currencies, Australian dollars is pushing all-time highs. All of the different government monies are hyperinflating at different speeds, so the Bitcoin price is different depending on where you live. But to have Bitcoin sitting comfortably over 100,000 for months now and have nobody actually be really excited about that, it says just a ton about where it is as an asset, and its staying power. I think that as the profile of buyers is changing, the downside volatility that Bitcoin used to see, I think, is also changing. Like in 2021, Bitcoin had hit its then previous all-time high in the 60,000s, and Elon made a tweet about Tesla might sell, and the Bitcoin cratered down into the 20s. And I'm not sure that it can still do that because of how much Bitcoin is accumulating in the hands of these big institutional buyers that really aren't really planning to sell it. And then, the Bitcoin ETFs, they really sort of trade during trading hours. And so as the ETF holdings accumulate, I think that also sort of limits kind of the weekends used to be a really volatile time for Bitcoin. And BlackRock is becoming one of the biggest holders. The gold ETFs have been shining. Obviously, gold price is doing what it's doing, but there's it looks like it's a matter of time until the Bitcoin ETFs are as big as the gold ETFs.
Yeah, so like when you get up, like those psychological numbers always mean something. It's no different on the Dow, no different on gold, no different on anything like assets. And those are psychological numbers. So it's going to have to build a base in that $100,000 range, 110, 120, right? And it looks like that's what it's doing to me. And I would say those big institutions likely have buy-sell arrangements right now, and they probably have accumulate, at the anything under 109, it's probably accumulation for them. Anything that breaks out of that little band there, they're probably selling into 120, and they just kind of like keep moving that up. And there's traders, they make money off trades, and they make tiny little spreads, and that's how they make money. But also that feeds the market and also reduces the volatility, where you're not going to see these 10 and 20 and $30,000 swings. You're going to see the band tighten up, and that's what you see when bigger institutional money comes in, just like you said. You're not going to see that volatility on the weekends and that where you see these huge drop-offs, because those big funds play that now, and they play the bands, right? They play those Bollinger Bands. They accumulate on the bottom of the band, sell on the top of the band, and they just have trading positions. But they also have like positions that they hold, right? They have they divide their positions between core positions and then trading positions, and they kind of use their trading positions to kind of build their core position, right? So I mean, there's people like Michael Saylor that just buy, but like the big funds, like they trade. No different than Tesla stocks. People just, why doesn't it go straight up? Because they play the trade, right? They play the trade, and they churn it and make money off of it, right? So that's why you see that volatility, but that's why you see the band start to get tighter, and you're going to see that likely as you move forward. You won't see the big upswings unless there's a major news event. What major news event do you think is coming that could be a catalyst for, like that next leg? Do you see something out there?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things coming together right now. One, I mentioned the gold price moving higher. Typically, gold has been a lead indicator for Bitcoin. And what's interesting, what's going on right now with what looks to be a Fed rate cut coming, is dissolving interest in the Treasury market in the U.S. So the 5-year is at an all-time high, and there's which you would think in light of that would make a rate cut impossible. So we're seeing like rising bond yields, potentially rate cuts, no market for treasuries, gold price is ripping. So I think you put all these things together, and you have like a really a perfect storm for a liquidity injection into Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think rate cuts are coming. No matter, it might be just a delay. I think in the next one they'll probably cut in the U.S. I think Canada has no choice but to cut, but it looks like even in the U.S. will cut. And then Jerome Powell has basically been kneecapped, no matter if he sticks around to the end of his tenure or not, because I think it is to May. I think that his tenure goes.
Yeah, I mean, and the interesting thing about the history of Bitcoin is that the first block, inscribed in the first block, was a message about the chancellor on the brink of a second bailout in Britain, which was a reference to a wave of money printing. Bitcoin was birthed immediately in the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis. And it was really meant to be a wake-up call. Like, Bitcoin is supposed to be something that provides people a way to understand how inflation and money printing works by giving people access to a form of money that can't be printed. And I think that, it's interesting times where we are now. It looks like we're headed for a big print. I think that alongside that, we're going to see a wave of inflation that's going to really make people start to, have to think hard about what they're doing with their money.
Yeah, and I think the other one to watch. You talk about that gold is ripping to record highs, but silver finally poking its head up there, right? It hasn't challenged all-time highs yet, so that where we might see a top in gold and silver when silver pops its head out over its all-time high. And that was driven by the Hunt brothers back in the 80s, I think, right? But in the U.S. dollars, silver is almost $41 U.S., right? So that's pretty high. I mean,
and so if you inflation adjust it, silver bulls have been just creamed. It's
they've Yeah, they're like like one of those crypto coins that nobody wants to buy.
Yeah,
It's just like it's gonna happen because
totally.
there used to be a multiplier on silver, but it's been kind of a dead asset for a long time. It's the poor man's gold, really, silver, right?
Yeah.
It has some industrial use, so it's gonna always have like an industrial value for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the argument that Bitcoiners make about gold, because really, effectively, what happened to silver when the Hunt brothers failed in their mission to remonetize silver was, the death knell in gold having demonetized silver as a store of value asset. And
Yeah.
I think that the market ultimately, especially in inflationary environments, is converging on the hardest asset. And this is where we'll see how it plays out. But the Bitcoin argument certainly is that Bitcoin is the hardest asset that's ever been invented.
And we have to remember too, like September, October, sometimes is a struggle for markets too, as people come back from summer and stuff like that. That's we had that October crash way back, and I can't remember the year now. And then September, October. So once you get past that, like most equities and money flows into markets. So, and it looks like Bitcoin is kind of like an accumulator right now. I think a lot of institutions accumulate, especially when they see it and on the lower side of that Bollinger Band, right? So you're seeing that accumulation. And like you said, ETFs, BlackRock, all these things are starting to accumulate. They're talking about different countries, all kinds of things in the accumulation phase.
Yeah, there've been some big ones too. This might have been going back 3 weeks, but we missed the show because I was away. Harvard, the Harvard Endowment, who famously, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, were still expecting that Bitcoin was going to die, the death of Bitcoin. Harvard made $130 million investment on a Bitcoin position. And so, you're starting to really see institutions coming around. Honestly, like, having been in that space, in the pension space, it shocks me how few of them have come to the party yet. And like, there was a separate news story yesterday about I think it was the Quebec QPP had a $270 million investment in an EV plant that went up in smoke and zeroed out. And there's a perfect example of a fund that has a zero position in Bitcoin. And this is true of Ontario Teachers Pension Plan. All of the big major public pension plans in Canada are holding zero Bitcoin. It's crazy to me right now. It's like a professional negligence on the part of all of the fund managers, because really at this point, like you said, BlackRock, Harvard, state of Texas, like it's there's a technology there that has value. There is a compelling argument about the scarcity value proposition, and a growing number of people who believe it. And this is why we're seeing this weird phenomenon today where Bitcoin is at the price it is, and people aren't even excited.
A lot of tech bros in it as well. Elon Musk, one of them. Jack Dorsey. I don't know. I could probably name things like on and on. You could probably just come up with some of these names, right? But a lot of people in the tech world are definitely big believers in Bitcoin. Did you speak at that event in Vancouver yet, or is that upcoming?
I did, yeah. That was on the 16th in Vancouver. I was on stage with Mayor Ken Sim, and that was a really cool opportunity to, hear a little bit more about his vision of what he wants to try and do with Bitcoin. The city of Vancouver is sitting, the city of Vancouver has the same problem that individual savers have. They're sitting on over $1 billion, and they actually can't even invest in equities. So the purchasing power of the money that they're, meant to steward on behalf of the citizens is being eroded at whatever rate, like the 7-10%, and they only have access to really sort of like low yield bearing investment instruments.
The GICs, that's short term bills and stuff like that. But I mean, they're kind of restricted in what they can put their money at. What's his vision for the city though, like in far as transacting? Because I know he said once that he wants to make Vancouver the Bitcoin capital of Canada. How does he see that vision playing out?
Yeah, I think there's a few different stages. And step one is really just the city being able to own some Bitcoin, with a portion of that $1 billion+ to protect it from erosion of purchasing power. You know, and even stopping short of that, like he was saying, they would really love to even just be able to own the index. But you know, I think sweeping things beyond that, you know, one of the things he was expressing was his frustration around how slow this stuff moves. When they announced the initiative to, you know, they passed a motion to sort of explore the feasibility of becoming a Bitcoin friendly city. And alongside that, he made an announcement that his family would donate $10,000 in Bitcoin to the city of Vancouver. And here we are, kind of 9 months later, and the city of Vancouver does not have a sanctioned way to accept that donation. And this is just the reality of kind of the bureaucratic red tape, I think, that has become, you know, emblematic of how all the bureaucracies in Canada work, and big municipalities would be no different. So, you know, I think they would get to a place where they would love to take things like property tax payments, you know, hopefully let their employees convert some of their paychecks into Bitcoin, hopefully using block rewards. But for now, they're really just focused on you know, getting some more authority and autonomy over the investable assets that they are stewarding.
Yeah, like, you know, like when you talk about bureaucracy with things like Bitcoin and that, you're probably looking at the snail race, and then they're calling them the snails, Speedy Gonzalez, because like the way the bureaucracy is slow, and then everybody's in there going to want committees and hearings and stuff. And but accepting money, that might be the easiest way to do it, is like, you know, even starting to take payment through Bitcoin, and then you don't have to actually say you're investing, because the investment dollars are tied up with even more bureaucracy. But even taking some of that and seeing if they can do that. But then you're saying they can't even take a donation, so that there's a tough slot right there, right?
I mean, and this is actually a strategy that the U.S. government announced. They sort of said with their strategic reserve, they weren't going to be buying any Bitcoin, but they would be keeping the Bitcoin that they would confiscate from whoever they were confiscating it from. So it's kind of the same idea, and yeah.
How's our big scammer doing? You ever check in on him in prison there? Sam Bankman-Fried there?
Yeah, I don't know about Sam Bankman-Fried. He's probably actually, I think he might have been released. To be honest,
I hear nothing. Right, you hear nothing about him, right? Because likely, if he got to survive, he might have made his fund viable there, because, you know, Bitcoin price went up dramatically, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and there was an interesting thing, because they recently did go through reimbursing some of the funds to customers, and in dollar terms, the customers who were owed Bitcoin got most of their dollars back. They lost out in Bitcoin terms, but they
lost the gain, but they actually got what they put back in, or were put in originally, kind of thing. Yeah.
But if you'd owned Ethereum or anything else, you actually lost all your money, because all of those other coins are still sort of like well off of their previous all-time highs, and Bitcoin is sitting where it is. So there's a lesson learned there. Yeah. There's our other I don't know, scammers, but there was an announcement, I think it was yesterday, about the Trump's Bitcoin company, American Bitcoin. And so the Trumps are getting, you know, obviously they've got kind of World Liberty Financial, and they have a sort of I don't know if it's hundreds of millions or $1 billion Bitcoin position themselves, but they have now this publicly traded Bitcoin entity, American Bitcoin, that is going to be kind of doing Bitcoin mining, among other things. And I think the stock doubled on the first day it was trading. And so, you know, you've got this weird situation going on right now where sitting president's family has, you know, they couldn't be signaling any brighter that they are going to be pro-Bitcoin.
Donald J. Trump himself, the stock that he owns is the DJT, the stock symbol, owns a lot of Bitcoin too. I think they're in the top 10 holdings or they have $2 billion worth of Bitcoin, right? Just in DJT. So now you're saying there's American Bitcoin, and yeah, so the administration, the current administration, they're like, you know, Bitcoin is a thing for them for sure. And you know, like I said, we've been saying this for a while. The wind is in the sails of Bitcoin for sure. There's no doubt about it that the wind's in the sail. and people see weakness now as accumulation things, not like the death of Bitcoin. Our title is a bit facetious there when we say it's Bitcoin death, right? But there's so much support there. You would say support, right? It's just like gold has support because central banks own it. There's support there just naturally, right? When central banks own an asset, that just gives it support, right? Because central banks were selling. I'd say like 15 years ago, they were kind of like net sellers, but in the last little while, they've been net buyers of gold as a whole, right? So with China,
I mean, China's accumulating a pile of gold right now, and over the last week or two, I've seen sort of renewed speculation that this gold-backed BRICS currency, Brazil, Russia, India, and China coming together could be a thing. I mean, it's a a very unique time with everything that's this weakness in the U.S. bond market, coupled with the Chinese gold accumulation. There are just a lot of different fuses that could be lit all at once, and
yeah, I mean the Russians used gold too when their market. This is prior to the war, when their market was flooded with American dollars, and that was the major trade. So they just used a gold coin to soak up American dollars. They just circulated a gold coin, and it soaked up dollars, right? So gold is favored in many parts of the world, whereas Canada and Canadians don't really see gold as a thing. And I would say the same thing for Bitcoin, right? Like the majority of Canadians still don't know how to trade it, use it, do whatever with it, right? So it's an unknown asset for many people, right?
I think in Canada, there's a couple things. Like one, because our point of sale systems in Canada work really well compared to other parts of the world, even compared to the US. Like our Interact debit system is really good. So when it's easy to spend your money, there's Bitcoin isn't really solving that problem for Canadian people here. And I think a lot of Canadians generally have the feeling about Bitcoin that because you can't pay for your Starbucks and Satoshis, that it's not a technology that's being adopted as money, and that's just totally not true. It's not true in that way in Canada. Yeah. And in Canada, we've also had the financialization of other store value assets, like most notably real estate. And we were talking about this earlier, where you've had access to asset classes here that have reliably outperformed and are for most people simpler to understand. And so I think that's also sort of created maybe some reluctance. I know lots of people in my personal life here in town who have done very well in real estate or perpetually bullish on real estate, and for that reason maybe don't feel the need to explore Bitcoin as a store of value asset. I think that there's a really compelling argument, and this is actually for this reason why I sold my house to buy Bitcoin, because there are lots of reasons why to own a home, but if you are owning it purely for the idea that it's going to go up in price, and then for that reason, I think it's easier to own Bitcoin, because you don't need to ever replace the kitchen in your Bitcoin. You can take it to a different jurisdiction. It doesn't matter who the mayor is. It doesn't matter who your neighbors are. You don't need any tenants. Bitcoin is as a store of value property. It's like the leanest, meanest thing. You can just store it on a USB stick and go live your life. Go to Burning Man.
Go to Burning Man. Yeah, one of the things right now, real estate in Canada for the first time in a long time is showing some real cracks, and it's really starting to spook some people, because a lot of Canadian wealth is in real estate. A lot of Canadian wealth is in real estate. That is the biggest form of wealth for Canadians. It's their real estate, and it's starting to get a little scary for some people. And when no different than a stock that's cratering, it's tough to sell when everybody wants to sell and nobody wants to buy. It's not very liquid at that time because people are expecting a lot more money for it. That's where, gold or Bitcoin or stuff like that is more, has more mobility, right? And then you can, say if you want to move to the United States, it's easier. And we're seeing capital outflow in Canada. And a lot of that obviously has been transacted into cash, gold, Bitcoin, whatever you have it in, or U.S. stocks for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
But it's tougher to move your house to the U.S. You can't really put it on a truck.
Yeah, I mean, in liquidity, like you mentioned, at a given time, there's only sort of like a very tiny percentage of the total circulating supply of a housing market should be up for sale, and so liquidity is is a challenge, and they're typically sales that are slow, right? Compared to, disposing of a gold position or Bitcoin or stocks, like you said. There are a lot of different challenges. I think that a lot of people unfortunately are going to discover that the number, like anything, right? You've made money on an asset when you've sold it, and until that time, the number on a screen isn't real wealth. And so there's a lot of, air quotes, wealth in the Canadian real estate market that is kind of sort of phantom hot air. And I think that we're starting to see some of that get let out. I wonder about, what can turn that around. There's the prices have reached a point where they've gotten completely out of whack with salaries, and generating incoming demand is tough. So
yeah, we try to keep the show around a half hour, and we're near there. But we also want to talk about the sponsor of the show, which is yourself and Block Rewards, and what you do. And one of the cool things you do, because you were in the benefits space, is you've actually turned Block Rewards into a way that people can pay their employees. And so that's a really cool way. People can sign up to the program and then take a portion of their pay, or all their pay, if they wanted to, and put it into Bitcoin.
Bitcoin savings plan. Yeah, it is. This is the easiest way to extend the ability for your employees to convert some of their paycheck into Bitcoin, or to offer Bitcoin as a perk or as a reward. And we have customers now, really actually across Canada, that are implementing a Bitcoin savings plan, and sometimes doing it in the same way that they may be offering it as a traditional RSP. The pros and cons are different. But what you can't argue against is that Bitcoin is one of the best performing assets of all time in the lifetime that it's existed. And over the last 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, almost every time frame is favorable. Anyone who's been holding Bitcoin for more than 4 years is up significantly. We think it has a really important niche to carve out in the way people think about total rewards, because of how hard it is to outperform the rate that your money is losing its value. And Bitcoin has been one of the small handful of things that has reliably done that, particularly over the last 4 or 5 years when inflation has really become a lot more pronounced.
I got a really cool story to share with you. I have a young friend of mine, I guess 32, younger friend, and then she was in Denmark. And there she needed Bitcoin. So she wouldn't have bought Bitcoin, but she needed it to buy stuff. So she got some Bitcoin. And then after she left Denmark, she didn't even look at it. And then we had a look at it the other day, and she's up 60%. That was the good news. But the bad news is she only had like $20 worth. But she was actually using it. She used it to transact, right? It was a daily thing. Like, she was actually using it to transact. So in Denmark, obviously, they're transacting in it on a daily basis.
Yeah, and people really are all over the world. There's sort of 3 things you want a form of money to do as a medium of exchange: a store of value, and a unit of account, which is when you're measuring that thing, pricing things in that thing. And here, like I said, it's mostly a store of value in Canada. That's still really useful. But if you travel around the world, people are definitely. In my Bitcoin travels, I have met lots of people that only use Bitcoin, even living in Canada, and you can make it work.
Yeah, there you go. Well, anything else you want to add before we sign off for today's show?
No, just if you're listening and you are interested to learn more about Bitcoin Savings Plan, visit us at blockrewards.ca.
There you go, and. We'll be back in 2 weeks, and just to answer the question there, is Bitcoin dead? The answer is a hard no. And
I feel fairly comfortable. It will still be alive when we see you next time.
We won't do the funeral like CNBC at 9,000 when they actually had they did a funeral for it.
Yeah.
That's like the Comedy Channel at CNBC sometimes. Anyway, thank you, and thank you for watching Now Media.